How's it going, airplane collectors? Welcome back to another video. It's your host Ray. Today's video is a model review on the Gemini 200 United Airlines Boeing 757-200. This model was released in April of 2022. This review will consist of a short discussion of the box and its features, and then an in-depth discussion and analysis of the model and its features. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you guys my personal opinion of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. So let's get this started. So here's the box. It's your standard Gemini 200 box. It's 23 centimeters long, 23 centimeters tall, and 8.5 centimeters wide. So it's moderately sized and it's accurate. It's good for the model. It isn't overkill or anything. I'll show you guys around the box now. So obviously here's the front. Here's the bottom. Here's the right side. Top. Left side. Here's the back side. Back here you can see some of the Gemini Jet's false guarantees and their social medias. Under this flap, which is on the front of the box and secured by a Velcro strap, you can see a brief history on the Boeing 757 aircraft. When you open up the box, you get the model, the display stand, and two sets of landing gear configurations, one of which is in the extended position, which is what they're in right now, and the other is the retracted position. I'll talk about the stand shortly. Here's the stand. It's a all-metal display stand. It's actually pretty decent. The attachment between the support part and the base is a little bit weak. It's slightly loose, but it's nowhere near compromising the safety of the model, so it's just a little nitpick. It fits into the model quite nicely, and it includes a foam protection pad, which is actually really necessary on this model because the display stand hole is right behind one of the light things here. So when you put the model on the display stand, you can see that the stand covers that light, but it doesn't damage it due to the foam protection pad. Here's the model itself. Let's get into some specs. The model is 24 centimeters long, the wingspan is 19.7 centimeters, and the model is 6.7 centimeters tall. So it's moderately sized and accurate to 1:200 scale. I'll give you guys a quick 360 of the model. So apologies in advance if my fingers get in the way of anything you're trying to look at, and enjoy. Starting up the review at the front of the aircraft, unfortunately we must begin with a complaint. The nose shape here is actually not really good. The nose cone section here is a bit pointier than it should be, and it's hard to notice at first glance or at certain angles, but it is definitely noticeable after a while. So if you're picky about the nose shape, take this into account. The nose shape will likely be messed up. This isn't a model only case. I've seen this on a few other models, including the model that was posted by Todd Michaels, who receives these models first. So that's pretty unfortunate, but everything else up here looks good. The printed detail looks fabulous, so no complaints on the printed detail. As we move down the fuselage, you can see some of the external features. There's a light here, an antenna. Well, there's two antennas. There's one up here and one down there. Both of those look nice. They align good, and no complaints on those. As we move down the aircraft, you can see there's a little bit of an issue with the join between the wing and the fuselage. There's a noticeable gap. And it's not broken or anything, but there is a noticeable gap, so also take that into account. You might see that. Detail seems consistent, no complaints on the fuselage. You can see the registration right there. And yeah, it looks pretty good. And also you can see a little bit of the fitting hole for the horizontal stabilizers here too. So the fitting holes for the aerodynamic surfaces aren't the best. Here's a vertical stabilizer. Everything looks good here, no complaints. The color is fine. And yeah, just no complaints, looks good. Here's the other side of the aircraft, and right here actually there's a little bit of a difference. There's this small antenna sitting on the right side of the APU. It caught me off guard. I didn't expect it to be there, but it's a cool detail. Looks good. There's also another two antennas here and here, so take that into account. Right side of the aircraft looks just fine. Same issue with the nose, but aside from that, everything looks pretty good if my camera would focus. Let's talk about the wings for a bit. The wings look fantastic. Not as much printed detail as I would have expected, but there really isn't that much to print either. A great amount of molded detail went into this model. As you can see, the molded details look fantastic. They aren't filled or anything, so that's good. Show you guys the underside too. The undersides have a lot of molded detail, but they obviously don't have as much printed detail. The wingtips look really good too. However, on this one, you can kind of see there was a little bit of a paint issue right up at the tip, so I just need to pull this little part off. Well, I guess it wants to stay. The tips seem a little bit extended, but keep in mind these models, these wingtips are very hard to replicate, so I really can't say too much about that. Moving to the rear of the aircraft, I'll show you guys the horizontal stabilizers. These look good too, with a bit more printed detail than I expected. Looks good. The underside here also looks fine, and there's the two antennas that I pointed out earlier. Now for the engines have an absurd amount of printed detail on them. The engines both look really good. Here's the fan blades. Unfortunately, the fan blades do not spin, but they do have the spinner spiral detail, which looks fantastic. The pylon looks okay, attachment looks good, no complaints from any part on the engines, and the exhaust nozzles and the exhaust portion also look pretty good. Here's a better view of the engine exhaust portion if you guys were curious. I know it didn't show that well the last time. Let's make the transition to the bottom of the aircraft. Down here there's a lot of printed detail and really everything looks good. Of course there's the Gemini Jets logo here. Up here there's this antenna, there's a large antenna, this small antenna, the light here. And the display stand hold here, it really doesn't mess with anything, and as I mentioned earlier, the foam cushion on the included stand protects this light from damage, so everything's good down here. Let's talk about the landing gear. The landing gear as a whole, they're okay. They're not the best, they're not the worst. There is a few details on them that have been noticed by some of the collectors. Like here's the nose wheel. It attaches via an expanded foam cushion, so it's kind of interesting. You could just, I guess, nudge it in there until it fits. It's pretty good overall. It is bent backwards, which is accurate to the 757, but I'm not sure how far backwards it's supposed to be bent. So I won't complain about it, but if you do see that it's bent back, please comment that down below so I can be informed as well as other collectors. The main landing gears look okay in terms of detail. However, it has been noticed by multiple collectors that the cover doors here are a little too large. They should be a little smaller, and some have even gone as far as to sand down the edges to make it a bit more accurate. So keep that in mind. Also, the gears do not tilt all the way up as they should. They actually tilt more forward instead of backwards due to the fact that the door gets in the way and it's too big. So yeah, the main gears aren't exactly the strong point of this model. As I mentioned, the model comes with two gear configurations, one in the extended position, which they are in that position right now, and the other in the retracted one. As I said with the nose, it comes off and it's attached by a foam cushion, but the main gear are attached by magnets. So the fit on these is overall really well, and I won't complain about those. Unfortunately, the very opposite must be said about the retracted configuration covers. Sorry, my dad's sneezing. The retracted configuration doors do not fit very well at all, especially the main gear ones, because they aren't even magnetically attached, so they fall out really quickly. This one fits in pretty tight, and it's very easy to just force in there too far and never be able to get it back out. So you do need a set of like precision tweezers to remove it. And overall, if you're going to just display this aircraft without the gears, just don't even bother putting the gear covers on. Here's what the aircraft looks like from the front. Wing flex looks decent. However, you can see the cockpit window printing is a little bit off and lopsided. It's kind of tilting towards the left. It's kind of bent downwards that way, so that's kind of annoying. But aside from that, everything else looks decent. Well, that concludes the review, and that also concludes the amount of times I'm going to knock the camera off balance. So, time for my personal opinion and recommendation. This model does have its problems, so honestly, it's not the best. But if you want to get this model, you can. Just know it's going to arrive with some problems. So overall, I really can't decide whether I recommend it or not. I say I do recommend it, but just know there's strong risks that there's going to be a problem with it. Well, that concludes the video. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those down below. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Stay tuned for more airplane content. I'll see you guys later.